We are also going to be recording. So again, um, welcome. My name is Sarah Janicki, and I am a co-chair of the Shared Safety Task Force, the Shared Safety Work Group in Philadelphia. I also work as the Director of Prevention and Education at WAR, which is Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. Um, so I want to let you know that these sessions here that we host are offered by a coalition called Shared Safety. We're a citywide collaboration made up of city agencies, community-based organizations, and we're all looking to improve services for people who are experiencing relational violence. We host these webinars for health and human service professionals every other month to improve our knowledge about these complicated and varied topics. And so to learn more, access more resources, including toolkits from providers, go to our webpage, which is on phila.gov. And with all of that in mind, we're going to actually jump in now to the real deal. So our session today is focused on the safety of people conducting home visits. And I'm going to introduce our panel, and then we will have our conversations. So home visits can be part of voluntary visiting programs in different people's houses. Families with young children, could be the result of mandatory services because there was a report of child abuse or neglect. And either way, a home visit is all about supporting the people in their own homes. But we know that sometimes homes aren't safe, not safe for the folks who live there. It may not feel safe for the folks who are visiting. So how do we recognize and then provide supports to providers who are going in, knowing the risks, getting their teams ready, and still supporting the families who are dealing with the violence in the home on a more regular basis? So what was happening before you arrived may be happening after you leave. And so how do we continue to support families in those settings? So today we have three panelists who come from a range of backgrounds, and they're going to share how they approach safety for home visits when working with their clients who may be experiencing intimate partner violence, sexual violence, or sex trafficking. So to start with, we have Molly Ferris. Molly has been with the Salvation Army's anti-trafficking team since 2019, and she started as a victim advocate and now focuses on education and prevention. She's worked closely with children, abuse survivors, and Latino communities, and Molly has a background in social work and is licensed in the field. She is deeply committed to fair labor practices and supporting immigrants who are impacted by trafficking. So welcome, Molly. We are also joined by Liz Tour, who is the Senior Director of Child Health and Education at the National Nurse-Led Care Coalition, or NNCC. And Liz brings over a decade of experience in public health nursing with a focus on equity, family support, systems that promote child well-being, and she leads nurse-led home visiting programs serving hundreds of families and is deeply involved in integrating early childhood care with our health systems, promoting early literacy and advancing trauma-informed practices. So welcome, Liz. And last but not least, we have Tony Lapp. And Tony is a licensed clinical social worker and executive director of Cordea, a long-running program that works with people who have acted abusively. He's involved in both local and national projects focused on ending family and intimate partner violence and has been recognized with awards from Women's Way and Women Against Abuse for his work. He also shares his insights on radio and podcasts, bringing these important conversations to a much wider audience. So as a note, we originally did plan to have Raina Gray, who works with DHS, join us, but she's sick and not able to make it. And thankfully, we still are going to make it through and be able to share as much as we can. And if you have a particular specific question that we're not able to answer, we'll make a note and be sure to connect with Raina to get a good answer after. So some people we know submitted questions at registration, and these have helped sort of shape the questions that we'll be asking throughout the panel. If you have additional questions or if something pops into your head as we go along, please use the Q&A box in your black bar at the bottom of your screen, and feel free to drop any questions in there as they come up, and then we'll do our best to answer them as we go along or save them as a bank for the end. So, to actually get started, we're going to kick things off with Liz for our first question, and then we'll hear from Molly and Tony and their feedback as well. So, Liz, can you tell us about your experience with home visits or working with professionals who do that kind of work?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having me. Shared safety, and I'm looking forward to this hour together. I started my work as a nurse home visitor at NNCC about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, implementing the Parents as Teachers program, which here in Philly, many folks know serves families prenatally until children start kindergarten. But especially, we really have a sweet spot for those 3 to 5 year olds. Um, so I started doing that for several years and then became supervisor of the Mabel Morris program that I had been a home visitor for. And then about three, gosh, time, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I became a senior director with NNCC. So I went from performing the visits to supervising staff that were performing the visits, providing reflective supervision, to now a senior director getting to look more at the policies and procedures we have in place around things like safety for our home visitors in the field, as well as being able to participate on panels like this and other interdisciplinary work in Philly to help us make some systems level improvements and continue to break down silos, specifically around intimate partner violence in Philly.
Great, thank you. Molly, what is sort of your familiarity with home visits and why this is an important topic to you?
Yeah, so I worked as a victim advocate for about 4 years with the Salvation Army. So I provided advocacy for people who have experienced sex or labor trafficking. So that means that I would visit them in the home, in the community, or at other locations throughout the community in our own office. So I have experience from that, but I also have some experience working in foster care when I was in college, and completing home visits there, and also doing supervised visits as well in the office for families. But yeah, I've worked with children, I have worked with adults, and I've also worked with seniors, all who have experienced trafficking or some type of exploitation.
Great, thank you. Tony, take us home. Ooh, you're on mute.
I'm the first one to start talking on when muted. Okay, good. So I've been working with domestically abusive adults for about 25 years. And in that time, a big part of the work has been partnering with local in-home visitors. So child welfare is a long time partnership, and we've done a lot of work as an organization with the child welfare system, and currently are involved in a home visiting project with a number of different home visiting organizations around building capacity for identifying and addressing domestic abuse or intimate partner abuse in home when visiting. So the other thing I guess I want to say is that part of the long-standing relationship with child welfare is that we did a big process of case studies jointly between the domestic violence organizations and child welfare. This is a good number of years ago, but it lasted a long time. We really, and it led to some fairly significant changes in practice, but also sort of in-home practice, but also record-keeping stuff that I think has been helpful. I think has allowed child welfare. My view is the child welfare system in Philadelphia has become much more much more coherent in terms of like how it addresses family violence issues among the adults as well. So I'm proud of that. I think that that's something that Those of you who are involved in the child welfare system that are here listening should also feel some good satisfaction about, because I think there's definitely been improvements over time. So happy to be here and talking about this.
Great. Thank you all. So for our next question, we are going to get into safety planning. So how do you plan for safety or assess for safety issues when you're preparing for a home visit? That is sort of how do you make it all come together in a way that is safe for your team members? Liz, can we start with you again? Next time we'll mix it
Yeah.
up.
Okay. Yeah, you got me on my toes. Well, the first note I sort of made about this is understanding your agency's policies around safety when you're going into the home, and not just reading them, but understanding them, and feeling comfortable to question them if there's something that doesn't make sense. Because that's where a lot of your expertise and where a lot of you should be able to look for clear understanding of your role, and the protocols around your role. Let's see, I think when I was preparing for today, a lot of my thoughts went back to trust and rapport with the family you're serving. And that starts with the very first call. So planning for safety starts with being honest and trustworthy, and a person that is seen by the folks you're partnering with as someone that's on their side. So knowing that you're not going to know everything going on day one. Our heads are always on a swivel trying to learn. But really at that first call, not just when you're getting to know a family or a client, checking their address, checking date of birth, but also checking, more open-ended. Is there anything else they should know about coming to your home? Are you comfortable, for our agency, is your home the best place, or would you like to meet? I see there's a library, I see there's a park. You mentioned your kid goes to Head Start, are these other places? So just sort of opening questions to showing that you're a creative thinker, and that you're curious. So, just that is a really early kind of safety, I think, to walk in with the confidence to say that I talk about a lighthouse a lot, that you are sort of strong and solid in the face of wild seas, and that you're ready to take whatever you're going to walk into. So kind of being in your role, knowing your practice and your norms, and really upholding them through every family and every client you're serving, because that is what takes you not having to worry about safety in the moment, and knowing your practices and your norms and your boundaries, and not having to rethink them in every situation, and normalizing that for your clients too, that equity in care delivery. Let's see. Families want you to be safe. When I started in home visiting many years ago, a more seasoned colleague was talking about this point, that the families you're serving care about they see you as someone that supports them, or that should be our goal, that we are partnering with these families, and they want you to be safe when you're coming to their neighborhood, their family, to visit their family. And so just normalizing, every time you call to confirm the visit or text to confirm the visit, you say, is it still good to meet at home today? Or maybe it's just taking that out, if it's possible. We'll baseline, we'll meet at the library every week if it's unsafe at home, or where do you suggest we meet? Starting every visit with every family asking who else is home with us today. And if someone is home, assuming they're in earshot. Or if you forget to ask, assume someone is home. Yeah, I think I'll pause there. I'm forgetting how long we should be talking for each question, so I could go on and on, right? But it's
You're
also fun to
okay.
bounce
You're
off
okay.
other folks.
I'll send another one your way
Great.
soon. Molly, how about your thoughts on assessing for safety when you're preparing for a home visit?
Yeah, I think so. I'll take you through a hypothetical of like when we first meet a client at New Day, our first meeting is usually held at the office, right? We just don't walk into somebody's house if this is the first time we're seeing somebody, unless there is an extenuating circumstance or if this individual is, I'm thinking of all the places I've visited people, right? Like I've seen people in the hospital, I've seen people in jail, I've seen people in juvenile justice, so many different settings. But for somebody who is referred to us, we would have them come to our office first and foremost for at the very least, the first meeting. In that first meeting, that is really where we set the stage for how we operate, right? We tell the clients what their rights are as a client. We also tell the client what is important to us, which number one is always going to be safety. And that can mean their physical safety or their mental safety or their emotional safety. And that's where we have very honest conversations with people about perhaps what's going on at home. Again, like Liz said, using those open-ended questions to kind of explore what the person's home situation looks like if they have a home, or maybe we have a lot of people who are what we call like couch hopping, right? They don't have stable housing but are staying here, there, and everywhere. We can meet people in the community and we will recommend that. Obviously, there can be challenges, which I think is something we're going to talk about shortly. But generally speaking, we have a good culture of setting that stage. And again, using your relationship with the client and being open and honest about why we operate the way we do, and also emphasizing safety not only for the client but also for us. Like, hey, we have this confidentiality standard that we can't have other people in the house when we visit, or if we visit and, for example, if it's a young person and they live with their parents and they want to have a private conversation, we can have that conversation, but it needs to happen away from other people in the home. Can we meet on the porch? Can we meet down the street at a restaurant? Or is there another area in the house that is, away from mom or whoever is in the house so that you still feel confident in meeting with us? Um, and also, I would highly recommend using food if you have the ability to, because whenever you invite somebody out to a meal, they are more likely to show up. And a lot of our clients are hungry, and that's just the truth. Yeah, Tony too. So, hey, can we get lunch and talk about, some of your goals while we meet at McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or something like that? Or why don't I meet you halfway? Like I can meet you at the McDonald's around the corner from your house, something like that. So there's a lot of room for creativity, but also being very upfront about like why we operate the way we do, why we have rules, and just continuously reminding people is, I guess, like the best way to kind of like describe our policy there.
Great, thank you. Tony.
Yeah, so listen, I think I already indicated this, but I do want to emphasize it. My practice and my work is office based, so some of this is coming in a word to bridge or translate that. It may be worth knowing that our office manager, one of our main people, she is our primary intake person, is a former home visitor. So she and I, as part of trainings, one of the things that we, if it's ever related to home visiting, we talk through the plans, because I'm interested in making sure that what we're bringing is actually relevant. So some of what I guess I want to say, I don't want to, I was going to not talk about kind of generalized safety sort of considerations, because I figure you guys are already experts at that, or your supervisors are, hopefully, or there's other trainings that are really about sort of safety in general, but the related specifically to considerations around domestic violence or trafficking. I guess one of the things that I want to talk about is the way that things like that are held as secrets in the family. And so carrying some awareness that there sometimes are things that are behind the curtain, at least at first. And so the specific way that I think that relates is that it can bring a kind of a caution and a humility about first impressions. Just that I am looking for opportunities to gather information and to build slowly a sense of things. If this is possible within the context of home visiting, to have routine applicable to everyone, or at least if everyone includes adults, all adults, separate interview conversations that are not done in each other's presence, and that be something that is clearly, like, you can say honestly and comfortably, this is something we do with everybody, so that people really do have the sense that I'm not being singled out because of something that you think you see about me, which tends to put people's hackles up. That's one of the things. And then the last thing, and I think I probably will circle back to talking about this, is that if there does appear to be somebody who is clearly being targeted, or there's a disclosure, or it seems likely or credible, then I will tell you that one of the core principles of work with abusive partners is that we are really interested in not making the situation worse, right? Not increasing risk, not escalating situations. And so sometimes that means just walking cautiously until I can make sure that I've gathered all the information that I need to. Why mention this? Because I actually think that a lot of us that are involved in behavioral health, human services, however you talk about this area of work, we come at it with a real desire to be helpful and with some of our own internal ethical code. And so it's pretty normal to take on a sense of responsibility if I become aware of something, and to feel sort of internally pressured or motivated to take action about something. But I would like to just encourage the idea that that's a good thing in a lot of ways, but it's also really important to temper that with the awareness that if I move too quickly, if I make decisions too quickly, I potentially could be amping up risk for others, for myself, or what have you. So that's all. I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. Tony, I'm actually going to ask a follow-up, which is, what are some of the behaviors that someone would look at from a person acting abusively that should, raise an eyebrow or two? What are some behaviors that you want to be on the lookout that would be like a safety concern?
Sure. Yeah. I suspect that some of this will be intuitive, but maybe first to just say, in case this doesn't feel really self-evident, not all abusive people are alike. Not all people that act harmfully are motivated by the same thing, and it doesn't play out in the same ways. So it's good to keep that in mind. Another thing is that not all people who act, in fact, probably the vast majority of people who act abusively in their homes are not actually much of a risk to outsiders. There's a big distinction between their behavior in intimate settings versus public settings. So even a home visitor coming into a home, that is still a different scenario, which oftentimes gets interpreted as this now becomes public space, or at least has elements of public space, which changes ways people handle themselves. That said, here are a couple things that I would think of as red flags. Sort of repetitively not one of the family members not allowing space for other family members to talk. Just kind of dominating all the time and really not creating space for someone to talk. If there are, you may not be able to get this right away, but maybe to know that one of the pretty big risk factors is intense jealousy. I'm talking about sort of like really almost paranoid level jealousy. That actually is a pretty big red flag. And so if you think about, I don't want to be too flowery, but if you think about like when you talk about murder suicides and some of the stuff that happens in the gets reported on in the press, probably a pretty big high percentage of those folks that kill a family member and then kill themselves would fall into the sort of category of people that are motivated specifically by their abuse is motivated by jealousy and suspicion, almost at a level of delusion. Oh yeah, if somebody is talking to you in a way that feels quite delusional, that could be another thing that you would put into the whether that's related to an internal sort of organic thing or related to active substance use or whatever. So those would be things that I would be looking for.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Molly, we're going to shift to you. What, based on some of the things that Tony just said, based on your own experiences and your team's experiences, how do you all sort of reevaluate safety concerns in the moment? And when do you make a decision to leave? Is there a protocol for that? Is there a specific practice to say, oh, we're wrapping up this visit today?
That's a good question. I think that for those of us who have backgrounds in social work and do this work or backgrounds in victim advocacy are very familiar with this idea of safety planning. So safety planning is something that we do continuously. And throughout the life of a case, many different things will happen, right? So for example, if you have somebody who lives in a subsidized apartment via the housing authority, and they say, my landlord's upset because the door is broken off the hinges. If you know that only one person lives in that apartment, that is your client, that would give you an opportunity to ask more questions. Well, can you tell me more about what happened so that I am kind of understanding? Because a lot of times our clients will look at us as mediators, right? So I think there is this idea of as things arise, there is continuous safety planning throughout. Also, if clients tell us that they're involved in a relationship or potentially are seeing somebody, this in like our world of working with survivors of trafficking, this happens all the time, right? We work with young people who have partners, every 5 minutes, they're together, then they're not. It's really intense. No, it's not. So things change like rapidly and often with a lot of frequency. So we are constantly reevaluating safety. And also just, again, having those open conversations. I kind of relate those conversations about safety to in the same ways that we are trained to address suicidal behaviors, right? We have to be very direct or we cannot have this conversation, right? So we have to be brave in the way that we talk to our clients, and also they know that we are coming from a good place, right? Normalizing, hey, this is something that I have to ask a lot of clients. I don't want you to think that you're in trouble, but I do care about your safety. I think when a situation is not safe, that can look like a lot of different things, right? So generally speaking, if somebody is residing with the person who is exploiting them, we would not go to that house. Or if it is known that somebody is perhaps being exploited in that house just as the location, for example, a lot of our folks live in hotels or are kind of like in and out of hotels. That's not somewhere that we would go. We would also, um, if they have a partner and there is like known domestic violence, we would work with the individual to meet them outside of the house, especially if that person is living with them, for the most part. So we have a range of different experiences and client situations here, at the Salvation Army, because some people are still with the person who is exploiting them. Some people have left them, but are maybe still being contacted by them. Some people are very far removed from that time in their life. So it really varies, in a lot of different ways. So we constantly have to be, asking our clients about, what's happening in their life. And normally they are very, open with us. We also have, lower caseloads. So that allows our services to be more intensive. We get to know our clients a lot better than, a person who's coming into the house once, maybe twice a month, right? So we really use that relational aspect that Liz was talking about earlier, but also like our own training around safety and what that looks like, as social workers as well.
Thank you. Liz, same question to you, which was how are we assessing for safety ongoing? And if a worker is in a space where it feels like there are those sort of red flags, there are those concerns, how can they exit a situation like that in a way that is respectful and, to Tony's point, causes no further harm, is not making things worse?
Yeah, awesome. Well, my first thought is, again, looking at your policies and procedures, talking to your supervisor, understanding what is expected in your role and what is not, knowing in advance how you'll handle those moments so that you're not having to scramble in the moment to decide. And then again, so in my home visiting that's non-required, and it's voluntary, families aren't necessarily coming to us with intimate partner violence as the issue, right? And so you might be starting at the pre-contemplation, unaware that things are abusive, or maybe just starting to consider it. So, considering that, it's sometimes working a lot around the issue. So while it might be great if you can right away just establish a routine for checking safety every visit, you also might need to learn some other things. Check on other goals. Talk about the child's development and some of the things we're seeing there. Are they hitting milestones? Are they regressing? Are there did they suddenly start potty wetting or wetting the bed? Any kind of changes to their eating or behavior? And then from there, having resources to support these things that we're learning. And so, sorry about that, excuse me. Having resources for the things that we're asking. And so when thank you. So if we're being brave, like Molly said, which I love, and asking these questions, we need to have resources and be able to follow through when we aren't getting these reveals. So a lot of times it might be completely unexpected, right? I think like reveals or learning clues can be unexpected. And so listening a lot more than talking to. If we're being told things, really trying to say less. I say this a lot. Say less, just count to 10 before you respond. I do it myself in therapy when there's that long silence and I'm the patient. I say more. I have more to say. We get deeper. So really just slowing down, being that lighthouse that is just sort of solid there, consistent, not trying to have all the answers. I'm going off from your question, but this is all assessing for safety, truly, and reading the client and the family, and learning more about things like food security. If there's food insecurity in the home, and you show that you're able to support with that need, we're going to get to another need or another barrier that the family is looking to overcome. And we'll start learning more about the relationships, and we'll start asking about other relationships. And does that feel like a healthy relationship to you? And which relationships do feel like healthy, supportive relationships? And that's the beauty of home visiting, is that we have the time to, or our home visiting is we have the time to rate. We have the time to listen. We have the time to be there for the celebrations, and then also be there for the hard times, and build that trust along the way. Let me just peek at my notes real quick. Yeah, essential goods, making, if family goes to, if client is in school, are they getting to class? Are they able to get their homework done? Are their kids able to do those things? And other goals that the family has, maybe not about, IPV directly, but other kind of safety planning and collecting vital documents, starting a job training course, starting counseling, some of these other goals that sort of build their efficacy and self-advocacy skills.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge there is a question in the chat which says, do you establish rapport with the police departments in the areas and the homes that you visit? Thoughts on that? Do we have like a bank of police officers that we know we can call, or a neighborhood that we know is responsive?
Oh, I would love to be able to tell you the police district that is the best for responding to IPV, right? So if you're gonna have IPV, live in this police district. No, I'll jump in. I can confidently say that I have never experienced a uniform response from police departments in Philadelphia or other places around intimate partner violence. So I don't. There have been times that our agency has connected with police specifically around domestic violence, IPV. And while there is an interest to support, there seems to be inconsistent policies, or the way these things roll out in the community is different than what is the plan in the office. So overall, I think our staff have more so been trained to respond in the planning and the prevention, PFAs, and also supporting clients to know how to respond when police arrive, and not anticipating that police will know and be able to tell and interpret who is who and what is what in the moment.
Great. Tony or Molly, do either of you have thoughts on the dynamics with the police?
I can go a little bit. Listen, I do think that there are some good partnerships between the advocacy organizations and the police department, but the thing that I would say is that feels like a piece of a broader sort of building of network of support, and that why do I say this? The domestic violence field has, we share something with child welfare in that the system of laws that our work is based on when it comes into the court system comes from a similar period in time before which there weren't laws governing how you treated your kids or how you treated your adult partners in your home. So we both have some reason to be grateful for law enforcement's response and support, and also it's a nuanced win in the sense that there's a lot of evidence that the way that I'm not saying anything that all of you don't know, but that the way that law enforcement gets applied or the court systems function is not always equitable. and people with more resources tend to suffer less consequences, whereas people with fewer resources sometimes tend to get consequences that don't even necessarily fit the offense that happened. So I think that another thing that I would like to say about this is that the good news here is you all don't have to become each person individually an expert in domestic violence or human trafficking. It's good to educate ourselves. It's good to learn something. But the really great news is that there are community resources to draw on, right? And there is expertise in the community, and folks that would like to and are available to be connected with. So, for example, within the child welfare system, it's really sad that Raina's not here, because if you work in child welfare, you should have a connection to Raina Gray. She and her office are a tremendous resource within the child welfare system. Somebody that you can turn to for consulting, for training and guidance. She's really great, and she's very much plugged into the external agencies and other networks. And other than that, I mean, a number of the other home visiting organizations are now starting to partner with some of the domestic violence organizations. So there are resources to draw on when you feel stuck. And that's something that including resources to consult about, like, is this the time to involve the police? And that's actually something that those folks could be really helpful with. And that takes the pressure off of you, because then you don't have to be the one making that decision.
Great. Molly, anything to add to this?
We don't have like specific relationships with the police around like IPV or home visiting or anything. We are obviously a part of our police assisted diversion program, which is citywide, so we do have those contacts. We also have pretty strict rules about when we can call the police because of our confidentiality measures. So we typically do not call the police unless a client asks us to. And it's not like, an emergency is happening and we're just like, okay, and wait for the client to say, hey, I need the police. It's like, hey, do you want me to call the police? I'm concerned about your safety. I don't know if this is something that you are going to be able to figure out on yourself. So being proactive, as we typically are, again, around the safety planning, like these are your options. Which option do you wish to choose? But yeah, we do have some restrictions as far as like calling the police, just based on our confidentiality laws. So.
Great. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that we had a comment in the chat about an acronym, WAIT. Why am I talking? So reminding folks to listen, reminding just the folks, the service workers who are out here, to zip it occasionally and see what's really going on. Like, what are you actually hearing? So that's great. Thank you. There's also a question in the Q&A. Why am I talking? Yes. And a question in the Q&A, which is there peer organization or group for men in Philly that you have experienced as a powerful support and dedication to healing for brothers? Tony, I think this is probably in your wheelhouse, but I don't know if you can see the Q&A.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Okay.
I will say that yes, and not nearly at the scale that it would be lovely to have, and not nearly beginning early enough, right? I mean, it's maybe not wrong for us to listen. Domestic violence is not always male to female. It doesn't always happen in heterosexual relationships. That said, there's still, in 2025, a disturbing frequency to the amount of times that that men end up being the ones that are perpetrating higher levels of like assault and scarier forms of physical violence or control. Is that because men are innately worse than women? I don't know if we all would agree on that. But I will tell you my personal opinion, which is that I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of evidence that uh, that people of all genders are probably pretty equivalently capable of being mean to each other, being petty, being cruel, but also being kind. And that there are sadly ways in which we oftentimes tend to train people related to gender um, that don't always help that. And that we could be um, I mean, we could be really building towards a future where that was not as true, hopefully can be, but that in the meantime, we do much too little. And we do it much too further along in the process. So we don't have as nearly as much stuff happening with younger people as we should. There's a really wonderful, and just because I'm under pressure, I'm going to forget the name of it. There's a really wonderful series of groups in schools that Lutheran Settlement House is involved with. It's fabulous. Really, really involves. It doesn't matter gender, and it's really engaging, and it's something that's very, very important in terms of stuff specifically oriented towards men. Later, there's a really great organization. There's a good number of really great fathering organizations. Focus on Fathers is a fabulous one. They're they just changed their names. I'm gonna blank on it. I'm gonna come back later and put it in the chat or something, the name of another organization that's really doing some nice work around men's stuff. And yes, I'll come up with them in a second, I promise. They're
Gotcha. Also, so Liz is putting things in the chat. The Masculinity Action Project is out of Lutheran Settlement House. WAR also does, we have a Men's Plus group for survivors of sexual violence. So that is from a survivor standpoint. So we know that, as Tony said, men can be the victims, not only sort of this like binary of you're either a good guy or a bad guy situation. So we have a support group for men. We actually have a series starting in July. So if you go to our website, you can find that information. And WAR also goes into schools. So prevention programs in a lot of spaces are the spaces where some of these conversations can happen before we're in there's a crisis kind of situation, that when we're talking especially with young folks, with teenagers and young adults who are just like kicking off their relationships and trying to figure out what it should and could look like, that's a great space to start asking them, what do they expect of a relationship, and what does control look like, and what does consent look like, and what does a good relationship look like. And so a lot of times those are really important, like points to start talking to teenagers. Teenagers, I know, can be scary, just in general, because they have so many thoughts and so many things and so many feelings. But finding spaces to be able to talk to them while they're in all those thoughts and feelings and actions is a great opportunity for providers. Do any of our panelists have any sort of a mindful of time? Do any of our panelists have any like parting words of wisdom or thoughts, or, practical ideas of places to meet that aren't a home, or sort of key takeaways that you just kind of want to make sure that we all leave with? And anyone can start.
Well, I would suggest places in the community. One, anywhere with food or beverage. And two, the library. I think people forget that there's also other resources at the library too that can be useful. So it's good to like especially if you're working with young people, get them oriented and even adults too, honestly, get them oriented to their local library and be like, this is also could be a safe space if, for instance, there's something that's happening during the day where you feel unsafe, come to the library, right? It's a public place. Some have social workers, I think, now. Not exactly sure. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, there are people that are willing to help, and I have never met a librarian who was not helpful. So I'm just gonna go ahead and shout out the local public library.
Great suggestion. Liz or Tony, final thoughts?
I love to remind us that when a person shares with you that they're in an IPV situation, on whichever side, it means that you're on the right track in building trust and rapport with that client. We thank them, and that you there is part of the intervention. We like to say that a lot as home visitors. Your presence, your waiting, staying quiet, centering that client, advocating to your supervisors for $10 to take that family to McDonald's. Those are the things that are felt by your clients and are part of the healthy relationships that we're modeling. Like Molly said, going to the library, like, yes, there's a million reasons that third space is so valuable for all of us, but especially for families that are not surrounded by loving, healthy relationships that are. So the more exposure to those, I think I'm saying, ensuring that we can keep our relationship too, keeps that intervention going and keeps that opportunity to keep growing.
I'll just say that quickly that there's, when they do research around a program effectiveness, this is true for all kinds of interventions, our interventions, your interventions. One of the really interesting questions that gets used is how do programs get used in the real world? And it's not always exactly the way that the program itself conceptualizes what it's doing. So I think that's very interesting. It's relevant for our work. And it taught me something that may be of interest to you, which was that in the real world, programs like ours, which is specifically focused on trying to get people to change that have a history of acting harmfully or abusively, in the real world, that's one of the ways that they get used. But the other two ways are for partners. The partners are getting hurt, and for referring systems to gather information for their decision-making process. And so I guess the last thing that I'd want to say is, I think mental flexibility in terms of our goals. If we keep safety as the sort of like guiding principle, a lot of times we can actually accomplish pretty important things. It may not be the thing that we ideally would want, but still ends up increasing safety or allowing for greater development and health for a lot of the family members. Even if we can't, for example, get a particular person to change in a way that we would want to. So being nimble and going for what you can get is oftentimes a really important thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I want to thank the panelists for taking time, for the great insights and the contributions. Thank you to all the folks who came to listen and share your ideas and thoughts. We will send out a follow-up email to everyone who signed up for the panel that will include links to the organizations. Liz has put them in the chat too, but you don't have to click them right this second if you don't want to. And we will make sure that you all have those resources and any other resources that were shared in the chat. And thank you again to everyone for taking the time this afternoon and attending. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, because we made it to Wednesday, so we're nearly there. Thanks, everyone.